Welcome to the Pre and Post Film Review. I'm Matthew Stevenson.
And I'm John Asquith. So why are we called the Pre-Post Film Review, Matt?
Okay, so the idea behind the podcast is that we watch the trailer for a film and then we come into the studio and record our thoughts and feelings about how we think the film's going to be, and that will be completely spoiler-free, so feel free to listen to the first part of the podcast whether you've seen the film or not. Then when the film is actually released, we'll come back into the studio and record our thoughts on the film itself and compare it to our thoughts that we had on the trailer back when we first watched that. And this second part of the podcast is going to be full of spoilers, so make sure you wait until you've seen the film before you listen to that.
So for the first episode, we're going to be talking about the new Gareth Edwards film, Godzilla. You're going to hear our thoughts that we recorded a while ago on the trailer, and then we're going to jump forward in time, and you'll hear our spoiler-filled discussion of the film itself.
I want to talk to somebody in charge. You are not fooling anybody when you say that what happened was a natural disaster. You're lying. It was not an earthquake. It wasn't a typhoon. Because what's really happening is that you're hiding something out there. And it is going to send us back to the Stone Age.
So we're going to be talking about the Godzilla teaser and the first trailer that was released, which both look pretty fucking awesome, I reckon.
Definitely.
So what are your initial thoughts, Matt, after seeing those?
Yeah, I'm really excited for this one. I didn't think I would be. I'm not a huge Godzilla fan at all. I think I kind of like the original, but I wasn't all that, that impressed with the idea of a new one coming out. But I think the teaser trailer looks friggin' amazing. The score that they used from 2001 seems to, I don't know, give this sort of dark, ominous tone.
It really,
to the trailer.
it's such an awesome tone.
Yeah.
And it's like immediately not like the 90s other American Godzilla.
Yeah, definitely.
It's doesn't look campy or too... I mean, it obviously looks Hollywood because of the budget and everything, but it looks like it's got more to offer than...
Yeah, I think so. I think that the 90s one definitely had sort of felt like the disaster films of that era. Like, it had a feeling that was very similar to that sort of stuff, and this feels completely different. This is dark and almost like a horror film, I think. It feels
absolutely
scary.
Yeah, it does. And I really love that, and I'm excited about that because Godzilla hasn't really been scary since the first Japanese film back in 1954, and almost straight away the sequels were like a bit silly and they got
pretty campy pretty quick.
Yeah, very quickly. And so I'm glad that, and I think Gareth Edwards has said in interviews that he wants to bring the awe and the respect back to Godzilla. So it really looks like he's going to do that. And obviously having Bryan Cranston in there is always good.
I was going to say, what do you feel like the cast, John? Are you happy with who they've cast?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's kind of all I know.
Yeah,
like
right.
the shots of a few other people in there, but
Elizabeth Olsen.
Yep.
Good.
I actually haven't seen a lot of things that she's in. I hate to say, but and old mate Aaron Taylor Johnson.
Oh yeah,
is in it, and I really liked him
Kick-Ass.
in Kick-Ass. I thought he was really good in that, and Nowhere Boy. He's very good as the lead in that. So, but Bryan Cranston of course sounds amazing, and especially in the second trailer there. So, yeah, I've got really high hopes. I think it's going to be
me too.
Pretty great.
Yep.
So, we'll see, I guess.
Pretty excited.
In 1954, we awakened something.
Well, there's nuclear tests in the Pacific. Not tests.
They were trying to kill it.
All right. So, both pretty excited about Godzilla, having watched the trailers.
We were very excited.
And now we've seen the film. John, how did you feel about Godzilla?
I was pretty disappointed coming out of this one, actually. I thought for the first half an hour or so until up until Bryan Cranston carks it, basically. I thought...
you had high hopes until then.
Yeah, and I think it kind of held together well in terms of story and everything. But once he dies and it kind of falls apart, the narrative, and also I think a big part is just in terms of like the characters, for me was the most interesting, and his son is just like really boring all the time, and I just didn't really care about what happened to him at all. So that was an early warning sign when Bryan Cranston got sort of knocked off, and then I feel like the film just got sillier and I guess dumber as it went on.
Yeah.
And it started off with so much promise. And I know, I was expecting a certain level from the trailers, and, maybe that's my fault a bit for wanting something a bit more serious.
I think the trailers sell it as something completely different to what it actually is, though.
Yeah, I really think they do. And, I mean, all, trailers do to an extent, but this was like, I don't know. I guess the other thing is the film itself kind of still acts like the trailers did, in the sense that it is quite serious all the time. I don't remember many jokes in it.
No.
And it's fairly brooding and dark. I
think it wants to be brooding and dark.
Yeah.
Visually, it's trying to be brooding and dark.
It is, yeah, superficially. Yeah. But...
I don't think it is thematically or anything.
No, it's not. And I guess, again, while Bryan Cranston was in there was potential for it to be. And he had a reason to kind of, see what the monster's up to and find out all that stuff because of his wife. And then when it switched over to the son, like, he kind of didn't even care about anything.
He had zero emotion to everything that was happening around him.
Yeah.
He was just bland, I think.
Yeah, he was really bland. And I think, so that was the tipping point for me.
How did you feel about... I agree to an extent, but I think even in the beginning, I was a little bit put off by Bryan Cranston, and he felt like he was overacting, or maybe not overacting, but he was thrown into such high emotional stakes within like 5 minutes of the film.
I do agree with that.
And I don't think there was enough to buy into those characters and that relationship to make you feel
straight away.
anything.
They're spending a lot of time on that inside the nuclear chamber where they're looking at each other through the glass, and the music's already swelling, and we don't really know them. And
he was already at that stage in like season 4 of Breaking Bad, emotional heights,
that's true.
Like
that's true. Very true.
We never built up to that. He was normal husband / dad, and then suddenly this emotional wreck. No, I agree with that, and I did think that, but I could still buy it, and I thought, okay, it's a bit campy, but if it just stays at this level, that's okay. And again, I thought we'd be following him for most of the movie, and so I thought, they're setting this up, and that's all right. And I don't think that's Bryan Cranston's fault per se. Like, I mean, he's chewing the scenery. That's a direction fault, right?
Yeah,
wasn't correctly, placed in terms of tone and where he was in the film. He was just kind of running wild.
Yeah.
But I agree. I think that first half hour, I should say, is decent, and I think the film has sort of its heart in the right place, in the sense that it's slowly revealing the monster. I think that's maybe heart's the wrong word. Its head is in the right places. It's a good way to approach the subject matter. You don't want it all up front. It's like the slow build, but I don't think it delivers on that. Or there needs to be something more than just not showing Godzilla. There needs to be like a fear, or there needs to be like it's tension. There's just none.
No,
there's
none.
Absolutely nothing. You're just waiting for him to rock up.
Yep.
You know he's there. You know what's going to happen. It didn't do anything other than sort of delay the fact that you get to see him. Yeah,
that's right. And on paper and even in practice, I totally agree that slowly building up to the reveal is great. And there's so many Spielberg sort of references in this and homages, I guess. But you can do that as much as you want, but if there's no sort of content underneath that's driving the story forward, or no characters that you care about, it's just, again, it's like superficial. And the reveals are fucking cool, and there are some gorgeous visuals in the movie.
He knows how to shoot a film, that's for sure.
Yeah. I kind of wish he was just like, I guess the cinematographer doesn't have quite as much say as someone who's directing as well, but I wish he kind of maybe even, I don't know whether they needed another writer on or he had a bit more guidance from a producer that was more experienced, because the character stuff and the storytelling like falls really flat, but the visuals are pretty amazing, I think.
Did you know going in that there was other monsters other than Godzilla would feature in the film?
No.
Because I thought that was a genuinely exciting moment when the Mothra, there was not Mothra. Muto, yes, the word. When the Muto emerges from that cocoon, probably about an hour or so into the film, because I had no idea that was coming, and I thought that was Godzilla in the pod. Like that's how it was. He was going to be sort of born within the film, and when that first kind of like leg comes down or it cracks out, and it's just, I was sort of like, holy shit, that's not Godzilla. Like, what is this thing? And there was like a moment of, I don't know, fright. Like I was scared of what the hell is this thing?
No, I agree. I thought that was that scene was actually quite good, and the reveal of that, and then it escaping and everything was quite well done. And the Mutos in general were like handled quite well, especially when they finally meet up at the end and you see them sort of nuzzling and
that was the other thing. I thought that was really great, and that was kind of like harkened back to his earlier film Monsters. And it was kind of about this relationship that the two creatures had, and they weren't these vicious monsters. They were just two creatures like trying to find each other so they can have offspring. It's just, that's natural. Right. That's all they were trying to do. And I thought that was probably my favourite moment in the film when they finally met, and it wasn't this big monster cheesy fight. It was this moment of tenderness that kind of came out of left field. And made me kind of hate Godzilla, because I'm like, relax, man.
Yeah, let him be.
These guys just want to like get it on, and you're just kicking the shit out of them for no reason. Whoa.
That brings up a really good point too about, I mean, Godzilla looked cool, but I didn't really understand what his point was, like they say it's because he's the alpha predator or whatever, and so when these other guys come up, he's like, nope, you're not fucking doing this. I'm the only one that's allowed to
trash Earth.
Trash Earth, I guess.
No, I agree. I think it's very muddled in that sort of sense. Like there's no clear kind of, I don't know, thought behind, or like it doesn't seem to have anything specific to say. It's kind of, it wants to have it both ways. It wants Godzilla to be scary and this big creature from the original film, but then it also wants him to be the savior that he was in the later films. Which I kind of respect in that they're trying to sort of approach it from all these different angles, but I don't think it works in one film. You can't have it both ways.
That's
you need to pick one. And stick to it. I don't know. I think there's been a lot of people that say, or still sort of saying it has a lot to do with the nuclear threat, how they were like consuming nuclear waste, and then Godzilla was I don't know what, I guess he was saving the day. I don't know.
I suppose so. And I think this just goes to what we were saying before about it being kind of muddled. Like Godzilla, at least the first one, and I think some of the sequels, even though they were a bit silly, had sort of, I guess, on the nose sort of themes about nuclear sort of how mankind's doing that sort of stuff. And you kind of wait for that in this movie, but
it seems like it's going down that path from the start with the opening credits. It's all about nuclear testing.
Yep, and then you've got the big nuclear, like the power plant sort of imploding with Bryan Cranston, and but it doesn't really go anywhere. And at one point actually, I thought it was sort of reflecting on natural disasters that have happened more recently in like modern times, with like different tsunamis and earthquakes, and we're sort of seeing a rise in those things around the world with climate change or whatever. And I thought maybe it was going to sort of be a nice, cool contemporary thing, like more about climate change perhaps than nuclear, because nuclear isn't as big a theme these days.
No, not at all.
But again, it invoked that imagery, especially there's one sequence where sort of a tidal wave's coming in and people are running away, and it sort of reminded me of that film. Was it The Impossible?
The Impossible.
Yeah, which has some great sequences like that as well. But again, it kind of didn't really have much to say. And yes, it's a Hollywood thing. We can't expect too much, but it kind of pretends like it does have something to say and that there's more under the surface.
Yeah, I think you can expect stuff from Hollywood films. I don't
Well,
know,
yeah, you're right. You can.
And dumb.
Yeah, that's
No,
simple.
I agree, and I think that there's another issue that the film has in that it's almost at the end it seems to be this kind of like Godzilla is this force of nature kind of restoring order to the planet.
Yeah.
Which doesn't sit well with me. Like that seems like a weird way to approach the topic of like nuclear power or any kind of disaster or whatever, whether it's global warming or any sort of natural
that's right.
crisis that we're having.
Yeah.
Is that just sit back and nature will come and fix it all? Like that.
Yeah,
that seems
exactly.
like a weird message
it's
for
not
a
a
film
good
to
stance
have.
really to have.
Yeah.
Like, don't worry about it.
It's weird.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that kind of doesn't, like, because Godzilla starts off as they were trying to kill him in the, whenever it was, the 50s or the 30s. Yeah. But now it's he represents the opposite, of an evil presence. He's like restoring balance. And as you said, I guess a metaphor if you take that way of looking at it as, nature sort of correcting itself. But he also, it's just like, again, trying to have it both ways.
I know, and it's really dumb. Like that, I don't know, we're jumping around here, but like the ending, after he's beaten the crap out of the Mutos and breathed his fire down one of their necks and just killed them, then he collapses and there's the news report where it's like, Godzilla, what is it? Our saviour?
Question mark?
Yeah.
Is he?
But it's just like, and then everyone's sort of like cheering and happy, and it's
I
like,
really
have you just forgotten the fact that he just fucking leveled 3 of your cities and trashed the shit out of everything?
Exactly. If he wasn't around, their plan may have worked in some way.
It makes no sense.
To lure them out with a nuclear warhead or whatever. But he comes and fucks shit up even more. And on a grand scale, he kind of saved them, but he wasn't. He also killed a bunch of people in the city.
But it's just a perfect example of how it tonally doesn't know what it wants to be. It's one moment he's a scary monster, the next moment he's a savior, and you can't have it both ways.
No.
It could be an interesting grey area in the middle if you did it right, but I don't think this film attempts that. It attempts both extremes, and it just doesn't work.
No, I agree. I'd be curious to know, because we're kind of trashing it a bit because we were quite disappointed. Some of the positives, if you can think of any that you enjoyed.
Some stuff that I liked. Like I said before, I did like the Muto when that was first emerging from the cocoon. I do like the skydiving sequence that's in the teaser, though it feels tonally completely out of place with the rest of the film. Like, actually, that's what I was going to say before, that the film, the trailers make it seem like this horror film, this like scary, dark, brooding thing. But the film itself feels exactly like every other monster film. It's just military-focused army men running around.
We've just seen enough of that, I think.
We've seen, in every other monster film that's out there. So that skydiving scene, I guess, I mean, visually it's stunning. The music is great, though it does really annoy me that younger people will probably think that this music is now from Godzilla and not realise that it's from 2001.
I wonder if I mean, obviously the reason that music is so great is because of how we associate it, I think. And in 2001, it does represent this sort of presence or force that's outside of our control.
It's ominous, like an ominous.
Presence. And they didn't just whack it in because it came up in iTunes Shuffle or something. Like they're trying to make that connection. And so, again, in the teaser, that worked really well because we didn't know the rest of the film was not going to be like that at all.
Oh, and that's how I feel like it misrepresents the film drastically.
Yeah.
I mean, you said a lot of trailers do, but I think this significantly does.
Yeah,
tonally, definitely. That sets up expectations of something that the film is completely not.
Yeah.
And then I think when it's actually inserted into the film, it feels completely out of place.
It really does.
It's a great moody scene, but compared to the an hour before and the 30 minutes after, it's nothing like anything else in the film. It's this weird, tiny little segment.
Yeah, this little gem.
Feels so out of place.
Yeah. I have a theory that it wasn't in the film, that
The
track.
score?
Yeah. I reckon they used it in the teaser, and it got such outrageously good, like, buzz.
The teaser was great.
Yeah. And so they thought, all right, well, let's put that for that sequence. We're going to keep that
Let's
music
keep it
in there.
Yeah, I think that
Because
could be
it just
100%.
feels strange in there
Yeah, I agree.
to suddenly appear and So,
that's
were there
very
any
good.
other positives you could
I'm
think
just
of?
trying to think. Actually, there was one sequence that I really liked when the the Mutos have this kind of EMP power that knocks out all electrical equipment in the city. And there's the moment where I think Elizabeth Olsen's character's down in the city and there's kind of a smoke-filled rubble everywhere. You can't see anything. And one of the EMPs goes off, and then there's a solo paratrooper sort of parachutes in out of the dust. And initially I was like, oh, that's dumb. Like, what? That doesn't have anything to do with anything. What's going on here? And then a jet falls from the sky and slams into a building, and you realise that the jets have lost all power, so they're just silently falling out of everywhere and just hitting things.
That was
and
really
it's
great.
frightening. And then
Yeah.
you see it from outside in the ocean, and there's jets falling into the water.
Yep.
And I thought that was really effective. That was...
Yeah, that was great. And I feel like that was quite a long take as well when they were all falling.
I think so too.
It was like
yeah.
one shot, or close to one shot anyway.
Yeah.
That was really well done. There are a few moments like that, I thought.
Yeah, what did you like about it, John?
Well, most of the stuff, the same as you. I think the half of the scene with the school kids on the bridge, I mean, aside from the fact that that's such a cliche, silly thing to do.
On a bridge. Come on.
But the filmmaking around it, at least the start with Godzilla approaching, and again, I might be liking it mainly because it kind of reminded me a lot of Spielberg, the way he kind of builds up scenes and things. And just like the slow reveal there, the push in, the Spielberg push in, I guess, on the faces, and the fact the rain, like a lot of sound dropped out, and you could just hear the rain on the roof of the cars.
Very Jurassic Park.
It was very Jurassic Park, which is probably why I loved it. Probably should hate it because it's just copying that.
exactly.
And so there were a few moments like that. There were parts of when when old mate G.I. Joe is like, when they're crossing the bridge, to make sure the train can get across, and it's really foggy, and I think there was one moment where like a tank, like they can hear something coming, and then this tank just like appears out of the fog towards them. I don't know if you remember that or not. It's like on fire.
Oh yeah, yeah. I kind of agree in that that film has a tension to it that's quite well executed, but I couldn't help but feel it was again like just cliched in those action films. There's always like, you get the two big action set pieces, then the one quiet, dark, kind of scary one with the monster.
Yeah, look, that's
like
true.
it
I
was
won't
just
disagree
by
with
the
you.
numbers kind of stuff,
Yeah.
even if it was executed relatively well.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. Like it was. I really liked the sort of shot choices and stuff there, and again the visuals are really good.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like the whole movie, and that's a big disappointment. Is that the whole movie was just a checklist of like same
Definitely,
old.
yeah.
Aside from these few little moments that were like quite nice, and I think show that hopefully if Gareth Edwards continues to grow as a director, that we'll get more of those moments until we've actually got a whole film that's like really well executed and has great story beats as well.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the biggest problem. Like, it's the writing of the film. Right?
Yeah.
Like it's not structured well. I mean, it's structured fine. It's just nothing we haven't seen before.
Yeah.
It feels like it's something mass produced by Hollywood, which is exactly what I didn't want. Having seen those trailers, I thought it was going to be the opposite to that.
Yeah.
So I think, he's a young director, right? He's only done 2 films now. So
and just announced too that he'll be doing the first Star Wars spin-off film. So I think that's going to be...
It can't be as bad as George Lucas. So.
Well, no, exactly. Those films are always going to be at least okay now because nothing can be as bad as the prequels.
Yeah, that's very true.
But it's going to be really interesting to see what he does there. I kind of wish maybe he was doing something smaller in between, but I think that's coming out like relatively soon. So he'll be pushed straight into that.
Visually, he's obviously got a great eye. So I think you give him a good script and you'll hopefully get something really good.
I hope so. Overall,
disappointed. Very disappointed.
I mean, I I don't think I hate it.
No, I think it's coming off like we hate it.
Yeah.
I personally didn't hate it. I was just
I still
deeply disappointed.
kind of enjoyed watching it for the most part.
I think actually we haven't spoken about Godzilla himself.
I thought Godzilla himself was pretty badass and pretty cool. Like just the design, the way he moved. He did have quite a menacing presence at times.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've talked about the motives and stuff behind him doesn't make sense. But, I really liked him just plainly as a monster. I thought he was really cool. And his first reveal, actually this is another positive, a really good moment that I liked, was at the airport when he first battles one of the Mutos. And there's like a big build up to Godzilla arriving, and you see his foot land in frame, and then this really slow sort of pan up to him, and he does a big roar, you know, classic "the monster's here" moment. And then it cuts straight away to the main character's son watching the news, and the battle is like on the news, and then you're seeing it like from a distance.
Yeah, that was great. That was
actually
great.
Like I had a good laugh, and
it was one of the few laughs in the film.
It was,
like,
yeah.
Such a humorless film. That was the one time that got a bit of a chuckle out of the audience.
Yeah, exactly. I really like that, and that was like this massive tease that we're finally going to get to see them fight. We had to wait a bit longer. Although, when the moment finally did come at the very end, I almost feel like there wasn't quite enough Godzilla.
Yeah, I would actually agree with that. I thought the Muto battle would go on for a little bit longer, especially the second one. He dispatches the first one pretty quick with his tail tail slam into the building, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, that was a great moment.
And then I thought he was going to have this big sort of battle with the second one, but he kind of just like punches it into the ocean, then rips its head off, or breathes fire down its mouth.
Yeah,
that's right.
Like that was a cool, that was a really cool little moment as well, I thought, when he did that. But I was expecting a bit more after such a build up. And again, I don't want too much.
No, you have to balance it right. Like there should be a build up, and there should be like a anticipation and suspense for the big climactic fight, but you do want the climactic fight to pay off. So overall, visually it looks great. It does have some really cool moments. It's just disappointingly average in every other respect, I think. Yeah. Boring characters and no story, really.
Yep.
But keen to see what old mate has to do next. Gareth Edwards.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I don't think I can even add to that much. I think that's exactly how I feel.
Thanks for listening to the Pre and Post Film Review. I'm Matthew Stevenson.
And I'm John Asquith. We'd love to hear what you guys thought about Godzilla, so please email us at prepostfilmreview@gmail.com. That's prepostfilmreview@gmail.com.
Join us next time when we'll be discussing the new Tom Cruise film, The Edge of Tomorrow. Thanks for listening.